Ancient Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean or simply Dean. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And Dean, I think we're here for a pretty special reason today. What are we doing here?
Well, guys, we have none other than the ever adorable, the affable, the wonderful, and never ever be able to be deplorable Darcy Ross back again to do her thing, to talk to us, and if she's not a household name and you play Cipher System, something is wrong.
That's a lot to live up to, but I'm excited to be here. I love this community, and I'm so happy to be back on Cypher Unlimited Live.
Oh, awesome. We're so happy to have you here. And the first question is the obvious one, and I think all three of us know the answer, but just in case someone out there in the interwebs doesn't know, could you just tell us a little bit how you got into the gaming industry and what led you to working as the community relations coordinator for Monte Cook Games?
Ooh, good question. So I come from snailology. I was a snailologist for many years. So I was studying weird little invertebrate creatures and how genes turn them from a single cell into big weird animals. And so like many of MCG's staff, we are ex-scientists who still bring our love and passion for science to RPGs. So Bruce was also in chemistry, pretty big, I think, and also maybe biochem. Sean Reynolds was in chemistry. So there's a lot of science love on the team, but I found that when I needed to wipe my eyes clean of microscopes, I would love to just sink into RPGs, and so I was super into it. And I discovered Numenera when I went to Gen Con for the first time, and I played Numenera. I'd heard about it through the video game, actually, because I loved the Planescape Torment game. And I was like, Monte Cook anything, right? Planescape video game. And now he has an RPG. I have to play it. And I fell absolutely in love from the first time I just set foot in the Cipher system. And I was like, I need this game and this weird biology-friendly setting in my life. And I realized that no one would run it for me. So I had to learn to GM. And so that got me hooked into the wonderful world of Cipher fans and podcasters and meeting up with other fans. From that, Monte Cook Games kind of knew about me. And so when I was sort of looking for options post-snailology, the timing kind of worked out that they needed someone to come on and community coordinate. And that's literally all I want to do ever. So it worked out.
We're glad you're in that position because you've been nothing but supportive to us, and we owe everything to you, so thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so lucky.
You heard that, boys and girls. You want to get in the gaming industry, get a biology degree.
Just be passionate and loud. People will know.
I mean, I think we take that motto to heart pretty well here. Be loud and people...
It works, right?
Oh boy! But speaking of being loud and doing things for people to hear, you started your RPG community stuff with Cypher Speak with your Monte Cook Games focused podcast with Troy. I'm not even gonna attempt to say his last name because I butchered it last time. But how has that transitioned from being someone who just reviewed and talked about their products to someone who's now in charge of promoting their products?
Oh, it's such an interesting question. When I first was got hired, Troy and I talked. So Troy Pitchelman, incredible human being. If you've never gotten a chance to meet him, just so smart and keeps Cypher Speak going. We're recording our first episode after a big hiatus next week, so very excited to get back to it. But we had to talk about it, right? We made the podcast because we were passionate about the products, and so it wasn't a let us critique these products, but we never felt we always talked about how we would use it, even if that might not be how Monte Cook Games would intend us to use things, right? But it was always a very positive podcast. So we had a big question and discussion about do I need to step back from the show? Is it okay for me to be on a podcast about it? Is that kind of conflict of interest? And we decided that we only talked about positive things anyway, so it would probably be okay, and we would address issues if they came up. But one of the biggest issues for me was when I'm trying to remember what it was. There was it was Numenera 2, right? Numenera Discovery and Destiny introduced all these cool new mechanics. I was super sold on like the idea of it, taking the Ninth World and a whole nother book that lets you ask the question. So you found a bunch of wonders of the ancient past. How are you going to build a brighter future with it? And like that just speaks to me so well. But like we were for the podcast, we were trying to like read through some of the new mechanics, and I realized I had this anxiety of like, what if I don't like something in Numenera, right? Like I like every single thing that's in that book, the original core book, and I always had this dread of like, what if they introduce like a crafting system I don't like, or like what if I think it's too hard? I'm like, it was like an existential crisis for me. I was like, I can't let there be Numenera stuff that I don't like. But for the podcast, we were like, okay, we're reading the salvaging chapter, and of course it's like, you can't, it's the Cipher system, you can't like mess it up. It's great. It's easy and elegant, and exactly it's the same creators, it's the same ethos, and so I did like it. But I had a minute where I was like, Troy, if I don't like this, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Luckily, MCG keeps making stuff I like, so I've never had a problem.
Ooh, I can definitely see that being very
Right.
But I mean, like even for us, like what if they put on something we don't actually fully like? But again, it's Monte Cook Games, and they always make
so
awesome.
far so good. Yeah.
I think even Monty will agree, though. It's okay to disagree with everything.
Yes.
You don't have to absolutely love everything they do, but if 99% of it is positive to you, then your overall review is going to be positive anyway.
Yep.
I also think it's so funny that sometimes, I learned to GM from the GMing section in the Numenera core book, but it's really funny how, I'm sure all of you know, like, from the same rule set, people can adjudicate it really differently, right? People run really wildly different Cypher games or Invisible Sun games. And so the first time I ran Numenera for the team on the stream, like Monty, like we decided that like 2 days before the stream, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm running Numenera for Monte Cook live on screen. And we talked about it later, but I could tell that like I did stuff with the Cipher system that Monty was like, that's not how that goes. And I'm like, Monty, I could show you the sentence that I took that from. You can say there's a different meaning to that sentence, but like you built the wiggle room and I'm living it. So luckily he's always a great sport about it, but he always is like, why are you doing the things you do, Darcy?
I would be super nervous in that spot. I mean, I would love to try, but I would be super nervous in that spot. Absolutely.
You should do it sometime. Yeah. Oh, Monty would love to play.
Yeah.
Oh, so don't tell us that. Now,
I mean, that could be a Twitch stream one day. Yeah. Just saying.
First, we gotta get Monty and Shauna on for interviews.
That's true.
We're working our way through it, but we'll get there because we are also loud and boisterous. So
I mean, mostly this guy right here, Mr. Anthony, but yeah.
All right, so
step by step.
These guys are having fun, but we have another question for you. So,
yes.
And this is kind of like my bread and butter anyway, because I was an asset team member forever. So you're in charge of the asset team now.
Yes.
And for those out there in the world in cyberspace and everything who don't know what it is, can you tell them a little bit about what the asset team is? But also, are there any changes that we should look for on the horizon?
Awesome. So I was also an asset team member. So the asset team is Monte Cook Games demo team, and sort of a team of like GMs who like to go introduce the systems to new people, basically. And so it's people who want to run games at conventions or their friendly local game store. And what the asset team does is it kind of rewards you for running sessions for mostly new people, right? And so you get like store credit called shins for like any qualifying event that you run. And then for a long time, that was mostly like at a convention or at your friendly local game store. But, not everyone has an easily accessible friendly local game store or convention. I think there's a lot of passion in this community, and I've certainly felt it too. But, there's a lot of logistics of getting to another physical space. And so one thing we just recently changed is that we are now letting people run games online, specifically like through the Cipher Unlimited Discord, which has just been this awesome hotbed of bringing new people in and like showing them the ropes of the game. And so I just, I really wanted, like, we all really wanted to like support that was already doing the thing the asset team was supposed to do, right? And some other things like tend to crop up, like we currently have a sale going on called the Goes to 11 sale, and so like most things in the store are 11% off or 25% off for like a bunch of really cool stuff to take your game to 11, accessories and dice and props. I reached out to the asset team to like give me some experiences that they have, like write up some products that you use, like in your own words, right? Because, the asset team are the people who are like using all the cool stuff and kind of have the best experience of what they would recommend other people use and try, right? And so I was able to like award store credit for that, which is kind of a fun thing. The asset team and I get together every few months at this point for like asset team office hours, because I'm a big nerd and that's how I do things. But I've really enjoyed those because it's a time where we sort of just hang out on like in chat basically, and I talk on camera and we sort of like riff off of ideas, or I ask for some brainstorming things. And so some other things that I would really like to implement is people have like talked about like, we want some more like swag for the asset team. So currently there's some swag. There's sort of a like secret store you can get access to. There's like after you run your first 2 qualifying events, we like send you a swag kit, so you get some stuff. But we want to do more of that. And one thing we want to do, we're not sure how to like implement it yet, but is like business cards for like our asset team members, because like I have a cool business card that is, I'm an enthusiastic babbler who cultivates positive communities, and like I want our asset team to kind of have those that they can give out. And we've talked about T-shirts. Some other fun stuff is like, I'm a weird like prep monster, and so when I would go run demos, I would often like prep these wild like pre-gens and cheat sheets to like hand to my players. And a lot of our asset team members and other community members are also like make really cool, useful like adventures that they might outline, or like like cheat sheets and stuff. And I want a way for us to kind of share those together, even when it's stuff that like has too much rules explanation to be out in the wild. We're sort of working on kind of developing asset team resources that I'm really excited about.
Nice.
So
just real quick.
Okay, Dean.
I was just gonna say, yes, the asset team is awesome. I've been a part of the asset team for years now. I don't even know how many years. And yes, they are quoting us, because I got quoted today, guys. I don't know.
Yes, I retweeted it multiple times.
Wait, what happened? I don't really do the social media like that. What happened?
I got quoted today. Darcy quoted me. About the asset team product. So
I got a couple
about the products.
I got a couple of questions for our listeners. One is, how long is the sale going on for? So anybody that wants to catch the 11% sale, how long is it going for?
Mm-hmm. Good question. It's going for about a week. So it started yesterday, so it'll probably end around Tuesday. But sometimes it's like, it takes some doing to get the sale manually down, and sometimes if people are like really sad or just hearing about it late, we'll be like, we err on the side of letting people get the sale. So about a week.
Even though I know the answer to this is another question, either someone on Twitch or one of our YouTube listeners, if they wanted to apply for the asset team, how would they go about doing that?
They will, if you go to our website, if you go to our Contact Us area, there's a little section that's apply for the asset team. I was thinking of making a short link, and I should have done it faster, but I can post the link in chat.
Sure, and I'll copy and paste it onto our YouTube video as well.
Awesome, that would be great. Yes, please come join us. It's free. There is some text that I'm kind of revising that was from the, this has been years old, right? And so at first we were like, you have to be, really conversant in all of our systems. And now we have like a lot of systems. And so don't be afraid by that, right? If you're mostly like, Cipher system, and you don't happen to know Invisible Sun, or you love Invisible Sun and No Thank You Evil, but you don't actually do Cipher, that's okay. If you're passionate and you're, you know the system and you're excited to show it to other people.
I know that for a fact. For some reason, I've been GMing for 20 years and I still am intimidated by Invisible Sun.
It's not so bad.
I just need a group. I want to run Invisible Sun in the worst way.
Yeah, I want you to run me through Invisible Sun, so make it happen. All right, so I'm gonna lead into the next question. You and Monty have been doing your Best Game Ever series live on YouTube for a few months now, which is awesome, by the way. And it's all about advice on running and playing game, how to run and play games. Could you tell us what was the most important lesson you learned from Monty while doing this series?
Ooh, really good question. And I know there's like a distinct answer. There were a bunch of things that sort of crystallized in discussions with Monty. He's really good at that. One of the things that I think I've taken away from him is the idea that kind of what takes a good session and turns it great, or takes a great session that has all the elements to be really fabulous, but kind of makes it lose a little power, is timing. And it's not something I'm good at. And so it's something I'm still working on. But he talks a lot about pacing, and that can be pacing within a scene, within a session, within a campaign, right? And it's a lot about knowing where the energy is. Think about it, cinematography, right? Like, in a movie too, pacing really matters for how the emotional beats hit, or things like that. So you can even tell, I think, from the way that I talk, right? I speak to fill the space. When you watch the conversations between me and Monty will take these pauses. And every time he does, I'm like, yeah, I could pause once in a while. Okay. I'm like, oh yeah.
It's funny since you say that. I think I do the same thing. I got to start pausing more.
Yeah. And so one of my things that I'm definitely going to do from GMing, one of my challenges to myself for my upcoming GMing is to take a 5-minute break somewhere in my next session or my next couple. And it's about, so that's a little less like pacing of dialogue and stuff, but it's a chance to stop and reflect on how is everybody doing? How am I doing? Am I just bulldozing my way through the end of this whole session, or could I think that'll be my 5-minute chance to think about how the pacing has been and adjust. So that's my plan.
That series is awesome. So
thank you.
I enjoy every single one of those episodes, and I've actually watched every one multiple times.
Oh,
hearing you and Monty, the interaction, the back and forth, you learn so much, and we'll definitely add the links to that as well.
I need to post bloopers sometime.
Oh, I would definitely love to see some bloopers. I love bloopers. I need to actually compile the handful of ones that I've had over the.
Hey, we have a lot.
I mean, I wish we had a lot. We don't. We have a handful of clips, but
we make a lot of mistakes. It just doesn't get recorded.
Yes, that's a better way to put it. Oh boy, but we can move on. So it's no secret that Monte Cook Games' business model is to fund basically all its products through a Kickstarter. Can you talk to us about some of the challenges and advantages through this business model that you go through when going through Kickstarter?
Yeah, I mean, one of the advantages definitely is a lot of times. Companies that also rely a lot on Kickstarter have really written most of the product, and it's mostly like a pre-order front. The vast majority of our Kickstarters, except for stuff like reprint stuff, is like, hey, we've never made this, and we won't make it unless it funds, right? And because it's in such an early stage, that's both good and bad, right? Bad because as a person who's backed a lot of MCG Kickstarters, you have to wait a long time and it sucks. Good because often ideas that the community asks for is stuff we can implement, right? Either in the books or in accessories, right? I'm trying to think of some specific ones, but we've done it a lot where someone will go, hey, why aren't you offering X? And it's something we just never thought about. We're like, we could do that. Let's do that.
Yeah. So the big one I can think of right off the top of it is vehicle combat.
Oh yeah.
Starship combat, and because Bruce even said that there's, that in the book. Glorious book. Show them the book. Show everyone the book.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited for this, and so are a lot of people. So
you're just making me so jealous.
I know.
I'm so jealous.
I had to work very hard to go find this books package, which was lost in the south side of Chicago for a while.
Oh no!
So I heard it.
I have a question real quick.
It looks thicker than the other setting books.
How many pages is that book?
This one, I think it's a little bigger than like Predation and stuff, which were the kind of Cypher System Worlds books. This one is like 221, looks like.
Yeah, it visibly looks thicker than the other setting, the Worlds of Cipher books.
Yeah, it's a little chunky.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
We like them thick.
2 C's, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Our books have 2 C's.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to think if I got to your question. I hope that answered, one of the advantages, flexibility, one of the disadvantages.
Any challenges, like major challenges that come?
One of the other challenges is just like, because of that length of time, I think, because of that length of time, it's like people don't know where the status of things are very easy. And so like one of the things I think we're still getting better at is like updating, is like having clear updates that aren't over updating people, which can be overwhelming because then you get too many emails in your inbox and you don't want it, versus under reporting, right? And so I think sometimes we've been like, we kind of have an estimated date for this, but we have this inflexibility, we're not sure about X. And so sometimes like I would say our communication on Kickstarter has been one of the challenges. It's just finding that sweet spot of giving people who want it as much information as we can reasonably give, and not overwhelming people who don't want to be contacted until their book is ready. Not too much information, right? And so I think we're getting better at it. And one thing that's helpful is like the Kickstarter comments thread now. And so like if someone has some questions, I can go answer them to the best of my ability. So I would say that's one of the challenges, is just keeping people updated and not too much updated.
Is it hard to promote, with this business model, with the person that isn't used to purchasing their gaming products through Kickstarter? Because, we get a lot of people that join the server and like one of their initial questions is, I didn't back it. When's it coming out? And we all, since we all super fanboys, we never worry about those problems because I know it's coming in the mail.
Yeah,
so,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
I tell people that Kickstarters through Monte Cook Games are the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Because it's like consistently every 2 or 3 months I know I'm getting something. My wife even picks up and she's like, I want something.
We should get your wife something. We try to keep updated, and I'm actually thinking it'll be even easier to keep updated. The coming soon page is really nice for like, and so often it'll be like, like the Stars Are Fire was listed on there for many months now. And at first it was like fall 2019, right? And then it was like, and then it was the month. And so we usually go from like, once we kind of know which quarter it's definitely going to fall in, we'll report that and then we'll give the month. So that's going to be helpful for people. Kickstarter is the easiest. Yeah, it's a good point. They're kind of different channels. And like one other thing we're really lucky is that we have some great friendly local gaming stores who carry our products and love our stuff. And so there's also like communicating with retailers. So it's like retailers, people who buy stuff through drive-through and our shop, other places, and then our Kickstarter backers. So yeah, it's a good point.
Nice. So, we were talking about all of this Kickstarter and products, so Al just set me up perfectly for my question. Arcana of the Ancients, The Stars Are Fire, Stay Alive, God Forsaken, Voices of the Data Sphere. I mean, all of these things are coming.
Yeah.
Is there a game product you're looking forward to the most, or something that you're just like chomping a bit for?
Good question. The Stars Are Fire has been super high on my list for a long time. I just love space. Space makes me cry a lot, and I just want to play RPGs in space all the time, and I want to play Cipher, right? And Bruce Cordell is just the most perfect fit for that, right? For as far as I'm concerned. So I've been really looking forward to that. You say that we have a bunch of stuff coming down the pipe, and some of that is like 5e, and some of it's Cipher, and some of it's Invisible Sun. And so I think like our design team is several people, but not that big. And so their heads have been spinning as they're like, all right, get into 5e stat mode. Okay, we're back to Cipher. And so they're laughing a lot at like how much they're having to like move their brains around as they switch systems. I'm really excited for, so I really love the Jade Colossus, and Bruce just posted a big update on his work with the conversion guide for the Jade Colossus to 5e, and I think it's just like one of my favorite Numenera books. It combines setting, adventures, a whole system for generating ruins, right? For making ruins creepy and weird. It's just a really cool book, and so I'm excited that 5e people will get to use it, right? And then the other thing. Shauna is starting to talk about We Are All Mad Here, and like just posting some of her like visuals for that and like her inspirations. And so I know that's going to be really cool and different and weird, right? Like fairy tales, it's such a different feel. And especially since like Stay Alive, which is really far along, will give me that horror element. And I'm really excited to sit between those two books and play with like creepy fairy tale nonsense, right? That's what I'm looking forward to.
Stay Alive is what I'm looking forward to the most.
It's so
Same.
good.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Sean's new setting for it is awesome. I don't know how much we've said about it yet, but I need to make him write about it because I got to play test it, and it's like, I think I can reveal this. It's like the first thing that kind of made me care about vampires.
Oh.
And I'm like, usually vampires are fine. I've played them, but I find them like not that exciting. And he has a really weird take and really clever take on vampires. I was shocked.
When he told me,
I'm even more excited.
It's really cool.
When he told me about it, like I said, I don't think I can reveal it, but yeah, I get it. It's pretty doggone sweet.
It's out there. I love it.
I just like the fact that, the switch, you know what I mean? The flip.
I need to make him write about it on the blog so we can talk about it.
I need that book.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the next question. With all the current MCG products and settings that are currently out now, what's your favorite to run and play? And do you have a favorite published adventure you like to run?
Oh, good question. So setting-wise, like, Numenera is my bread and butter and my love. But when it comes to like a given adventure, there are a couple that I go back to over and over again, and one of them isn't Numenera. It's one of the earliest, generic Cipher system adventures that we put out there, and it's called Dread Expectations. Yeah. It was an asset team member only adventure for a long time, but then we finally released it, and I just love that adventure. Bruce Cordell wrote it. It is you're kind of playing the B team of superheroes, and Dr. Dread is threatening the local like natural history museum, and it's just a really cool instant adventure kind of romp. And I always skin it to be the city that I'm in, and so it's usually the Chicago Sentinels if it's in Chicago, or I've done it in I forget what other towns, but I always like research. Oh, it's so cool.
Didn't you stream that on YouTube once?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah,
once or twice.
I think I remember watching that.
Yeah, if you Google Darcy Dread Expectations, you'll find it on YouTube.
Oh,
a long time ago.
I think I know what I'm gonna do after this.
I love that adventure. I've read it
so
several times myself.
Yeah.
But
heroes too. So.
Yeah. Speaking of GMing a streamed game, you GM'd an awesome Invisible Sun stream called The Woman with Hollow Eyes. Do you plans to revisit that stream or perhaps create a new one?
Good question. So maybe James and I would say no plans are currently solidified, but I love Invisible Sun, and so here's the thing I've always wanted to do. I don't know if I can do it, but I've talked to James about it. But so I loved Woman with Hollow Eyes, and the cast was just amazing, right? Incredible improvisers and people with backgrounds that they really brought amazing stuff into this very collaborative game. So I was super lucky to get to work with the awesome cast of both season 1 and season 2. The season 1 we did before the Black Cube was made, and so we kind of, which was kind of fascinating. So season 2 was very cool because we had all the stuff, all the props and the tokens and everything. But one thing I've always wanted to do is kind of I love development mode, and I love, like, I get really attached to all these NPCs that we build in the neighborhoods around us, right? And so I've always wanted to do kind of like a Slackers episode. So like the Richard Linklater film, right? Where you're zooming in and you're just following these two, like, you know, regular but weirdos, like in Saturnine on their life. And then you sort of maybe switch GMs and players, and suddenly you're having this vignette. And I think development mode lets you able to do that really well. And so I've always wanted to do this kind of round robin, just like these sweet, tender, intimate stories in a strange, surreal, magical setting. I've always wanted to do that. So that's one of the things, like, on my goals. And also, awesome. It would be great because I would switch off who's GMing, and then I could play.
Yeah, that's. I mean, as people who play GM roulette, we could tell you that, you know, swapping GM from time to time, it's very fun. But
oh my gosh.
I do have a follow up for the question. Can you tell us a little bit about your process for running a streamed game, and is that process any different from when you run a game at home?
What a good question. Often, like you folks are doing, I'm running the tech end too, and so I'll leave that aside. But, like, if anyone has questions on how, I'm not good at running streams, let us state that, but I can take you from not streaming to technically streaming. I can walk you through that step. Technically, you're running a stream, so definitely contact me if you need help with those steps.
Don't worry, Darcy. Neither are we.
Yeah, we are technically streaming right now.
You all have a good setup. I'm very impressed.
We just copied what Grant does.
Hey.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the GMing side of things, one thing I love is that often when I'm streaming, we have either Roll20 up or some other way to share images, you know, in the overlay for OBS or something. And so that's one thing I love to prep. And if I just weren't quite so lazy, I would probably prep that at my home games, but I'm usually too lazy, or, like, I'll do it if it's like creature cards I make a lot of use out of, right? At my home games of, like, Numenera or The Strange, I'll take the creature cards so you have the cool creature art. But with, like, you know, if I'm running Numenera or Dread Expectations online, I can take, you know, I take all these cool images of, like, you know, the underground of Chicago, and I'll prep that a lot. Is one thing I really like to do. A lot of the prep is the same, right? It's like, you know, some NPC names, a general outline of what I'm looking for. When it comes to the Invisible Sun, because it was being streamed, but it was also, like, in person. Invisible Sun prep was always really different. And I find it's really the same between a streamed game and a non-streamed game, mostly for me for Invisible Sun. And that is, like, think up some weird stuff. And so I have a list of weird stuff, and sometimes I'll look in some books for weird stuff. Sometimes I'll look in my first session notes, but I just, like, come up with weird things that I could maybe insert somewhere, and I sort of see where my players are going. One of the fun things about, especially season 1, but both season 1 and season 2 of A Woman with Hollow Eyes, is I kind of had co-GMs in a lot of the Kickstarter backers who helped produce the show. And so I would have these meetings with Kickstarter backers who would help me, like, design an episode, or, like, you know, consult with me on some cool weird demon, or give, you know, there was a lot of, like, people submitted awesome NPCs I could use and demons. And so a lot of my prep was, like, search through this big sheet of demons and NPCs and ephemera and find out weird hooks I can use to string it all together.
Sweet. So, that being said, you know, you like, you know, Invisible Sun and the Saturnine and all those good people. And MCG are pioneers in the industry with inclusivity. You know, why is that so important to MCG? And do you feel that the gaming industry is changing with the times, you know, to be more accepting of all people, all players?
Oh, I think the industry is changing, and it makes me really happy. It's changing in different ways in different spaces. And I bet there's people who have smarter things to say than me on that. But you know, like, MCG has this kind of internal policy of good stewardship. But I think the more I've thought about like my time at MCG and sort of what we're about at our core, I feel like that is like a really core thread to what everyone at MCG, agrees on and believes in and follows. And it's something we try to do and be, and that's being good stewards, right? And so that's like, anything we're creating, all the people whose lives we're touching, we want to make sure that, if someone picks up our game, we're being good to them, right? If a Kickstarter, if someone backs our game on Kickstarter, we want to make sure we're being good to them. We want to make sure we're being good to us. We want to make sure we're being, like we try to like pick sort of, ethical publishers and stuff, right? Like we want to think about our impact on shipping and are there ways that we could be, basically be good stewards of all the things that we touch in the world. And it's always a process, right? There's always stuff we have to learn, and there's always ways we're going to realize, oh my gosh, we did X and we had no idea this was like a really, either jerk thing to do or, would negatively impact people in this way. And so it's a really humbling process, and because you're constantly realizing how you could be doing better, right? And so there's that. But like, I wish this is going to sound really corny. It's not. It's just true. So like, remember I'm a cold-hearted scientist with no feelings. Context. MCG is very much like a family, and it felt like that from the second I was hired till now, right? And we're a family that has disagreements about the best way to do things, but they're productive, and we care about what each other has to say. And so I wonder how much of like, why is it that everyone in the company cares so much about that kind of inclusivity and making sure that our games represent diverse perspectives and, make people feel welcome. And when they come to a game, we want to make sure we're being safe for people, right? And I wish I had anything smarter to say than like, maybe we all gravitated toward each other because we saw that in each other already, that sort of like empathy. And there's just a lot of care by everyone in this team. And I think that like, they just, it's such a nucleus of like people who already care about that like, of course, now as a company, we care about that. So I guess thanks to like Monty and Shauna and Tammy and Charles and all from the start, I think it just was a core part of their personalities and therefore like the ethos of the company. That's a really weird, long way to say it, but.
And I have to say, you guys do an excellent job. As you can see, we're a diverse group here who are Cipher Unlimited, but even further than that, like my daughter, when I first got into these games and she opened up one of the Numenera books, and my daughter's learning disabled. And so, first thing she noticed, she go, oh, Daddy, it's a warrior queen like me.
Oh my gosh.
Because the pictures, because that's what she used to say. She was warrior princess.
Oh.
Because again, my imagination's all over the place.
Oh yeah.
So I fed theirs. She could be whatever she wanted. But just the pictures in the book, called to her. And, so thank you guys. Thank you, Monte Cook Games. Thank you, Darcy. I really appreciate that.
I mean,
amazing.
From the art, the writing, you guys are leaps and bounds ahead of most companies. I think everyone knows that in the industry.
Yeah, man. A+ stuff.
It's like common knowledge.
Thank you. I mean, that was a big reason why I fell into it, right? I picked up Numenera and I was like, oh my gosh, with this art, this is one. I love a lot of RPGs, but I was like, this book and this art, I don't kind of have to feel embarrassed or be like, don't look, if I show it to like, one of my like, one of the women of color in my, science department, I don't have to be like awkward about it because I knew there wouldn't be representation of her, right? And so that helped a lot. And, it'll be interesting though, with like sort of progressive things like that, right? We're always going to be discovering things that we could have done better. So it's always like, it's good to feel like, and it's really good to hear the stories from people, especially like at the Gen Con, the Cipher Unlimited hangouts and folks, just people I've met from the Cipher Unlimited Discord, people have said a lot, like what drew them here, right? And the community they found through, yes, fans of our stuff, but especially the Cipher Unlimited people and like the safety and inclusivity and welcomeness that you have made. And so it's always really good to hear like the success stories, right? Like the ways that people have felt like we've been good stewards to them and have made their lives good and have made their games good. But like, there's also the like, we always must fight to be better and be excited about being like shown ways that we were wrong or could have been done it even better. So I don't know, as a scientist, I'm like, time to revise the theory, constantly be proven wrong, everything you thought you knew. So
real quick before we I just wanted to ask you, with all the controversy that came from consent and gaming, I mean,
Darcy, we got a lot of hate from just doing a video, so I can imagine what your guys went through.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. There's no apologies needed. Because what I'm saying is, do you realize, do you take it as a win? Because you did garner so much, whether it was controversy, the conversations happened, and, I was able to, get people to understand, like I said, it's not that I needed the consent in gaming, but it put it in a framework. It put it out there as something visible, So do you count that as a success?
Yeah, I think so. And I want to call out Jess Meyer, Burst of Hope Online. Was one of
Jess, we love you, Jess.
Incredible, really helped us out. Like, MCG, we're a great family and we're full of great, well-meaning people. But like, it's really good to have an outside perspective and, like a person of color and people who think about issues of sort of inclusion in ways that like we just don't have the lived experience to sort of have. And so Jess helped us out a ton. And so I think, from Shauna and Sean working so hard on it and Jess like really giving us another perspective and linking us to other people who have written about this huge topic, right? I felt really good about the document going out, right? And then I think because I felt like we had really done kind of everything in our power to make sure that we were doing it in the best and kindest and most empathic and hopefully useful way that we could. Then when people are being mad, they're being mad about things that aren't terribly reasonable often. And so then I can kind of feel that like, I do count them as wins, right? It's people are being mad, but they're not really being sensical about it, right? Like we're not forcing anything on anybody. This is an option. It's free. Like,
I mean, it literally says it. It literally says it in like the first paragraph of the document, but yet they'll argue that point to the very end.
Oh yeah. And so I think because we took the time and took the care to do it right, like I do feel good about it. It was still like a rough week.
I could definitely imagine. Yeah.
I think the biggest problem, not with the document itself, but with the discussion was that it became political really quick. Like it no longer became about what the advice was in the document. Right. It was whether you was left or right.
Yeah.
And that was kind of sad in a way, you know, like just read what, judge it by the content, not by what your political views are.
Yeah, it was really reactionary. It was rough.
Yeah. But overall, though, and I know all three of us, it was needed. I think just starting the discussion was a great thing. And, we made a video about it, and, we were getting personal messages like, like if I killed someone's mother or something, just because it was hilarious. But, we put on our big boy pants and defended it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, the hope is that when people like you and like MCG talk about it in the open, it normalizes it a bit, right? And it makes it a little easier for, me who was just like a gamer who didn't have many online connections. Like I think about like myself in like high school and college when I was trying to get into RPGs and couldn't really, right? Like I think about that person who I wouldn't have had the confidence to bring some of this stuff up by myself. And so hopefully like, that guide is for like past Darcy, right? It's like cool tools that I could have used. And when people like you and other people are talking about it publicly, it normalizes it so that like it's a little less scary for like, Darcy, who hadn't quite found her backbone back in the day to like bring up. And so thank you for talking about it publicly.
Before I ask my last question, I noticed in chat there's a lot of questions being asked. Could your guys post question, and we'll get to your questions after we ask. If Darcy has a little extra time to sit and answer some of the questions from the audience, we'll gladly ask Darcy as many questions as we can. So if you have a question, could you please start it off with the word question so we could see it, and we'll ask as many as we can.
Are we doing that now, or we're doing that after?
No, I'm gonna ask the last question, but it gives us time, to figure out.
Exactly.
All right, so Darcy, this is the last question we wrote. So, you one of the writers from the Burn Blight RPG, a role-playing game made exclusively on the Roll20 platform.
Yes.
I'm also a fanboy of that as well. But can you tell us a little bit about this game, and what was it like writing for a game designed to be played exclusively on Roll20?
Oh, it was so cool. So Burn Bright kind of emerged out of so I've already talked tonight about how I just get weepy around space, and I have a lot of feelings about space, and all I want to do is play RPGs in space. And so I think knowing this, let's see, it was Jim McClure and James Introcaso and Kat Cool and I were sort of the team to build Burn Bright, which was Roll20 developing an RPG that was designed to be played in the online space sort of from the get-go. It is also playable at the tabletop, but it was sort of with online play in mind. And I think I had a lot of fun getting to think about this and getting to dream up what kinds of opportunities you had. And one of the things that I really enjoyed helping design is the idea of the sort of shared resources, right? Because often the idea of Burn Bright is that you're in a galaxy, you're in possibly a whole universe that is starting to kind of collapse in on itself. There is a if you look outside the known reaches of space, there is this scintillating force field ? Who knows what, that is slowly encroaching upon space, on known space, and people who go into it never come back. And so people are, it's a story about that it deals with a lot of themes about kind of the refugee crisis, right? And that might be because of war, it might be because of climate change, it might be because of climate change related to scarcity of resources and war. But it was, was enabled us to tell stories that were happening a lot in the news and deal with them in interesting new ways, and talk about what it means to be not from a place, and to have people who are different from each other interacting in closer spaces. And so that it just deals a lot with sort of finding the humanity in each other. One of the fun things about that world building that we did was that there is no human species. There might have been one time, but they're not here now. And so there's all sorts of really cool aliens. When it comes to the digital side, you basically play a crew that has a ship. And so and your ship is sort of has elements of kind of a living AI, sort of the sentience to it. And what we did is we have a lot of cool assets that have already been built for maps of, seeing yourself around the ship and where you're positioned. And so that might be, I'm over in these quarters dealing with this bit of machinery to help us as we're navigating some strange environmental place. You can move your token to the interface with the ship mind, and you're kind of off in this other space as you're dealing with this, as you're basically hanging out mentally with the sentience of the ship mind, which I very much like. Did you ever want to fall in love with a ship? Now you can. Because it's a whole other character, right? But it's a character whose character sheet is this whole space that you can walk around in.
That just sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but that just reminds me of that episode of Futurama where Bender falls in love with the ship and it becomes a huge problem with the ship's personality being manic. And...
so good, right? I want those stories. One of the other things is there's currency you can get for certain things, and there's a lot to do with shared currencies. And so there's as there's a character sheet for each of you, there's also kind of a character sheet for your ship, and that also kind of represents your team. And so you can kind of have team points. And so I think what Roll20 lets you do is really easily see what your team currency is, have a visual of I think there's a lot psychologically for me when I can see the communal space that we're thinking about and that we're trying to optimize. There's some really cool choices that you can make about whether you outfit your ship to be like really good at combat or really good at this or really cozy. And if your ship is really cozy, you have more of these points that let you that anyone can draw from to give themselves more success at a certain thing. So it's sort of, there's this fun, like, your teamwork, your ship as its own character that I really dig. Yeah.
It sounds awesome, by the way, and I definitely would want to have a relationship with a ship in the game. That's
right. Oh, I just want to meet it. I just want to say hi and know what it's reading.
For our listeners, could you explain to a little bit what's the resolution mechanics like?
It's really neat. It is basically a kind of push your luck mechanic. So especially if you're in kind of structured time, it's easiest to think about in combat, but it can happen in any sort of narrative resolutions as well. You're basically, you have a bunch of skills, and like, I'm trying to think of what the final skill list was, but you basically have a bunch of skills to select, and you can apply kind of like the Cipher system, right? It's not that you're making an acrobatics check. It's that there's some problem, right? Like the weird I-beam is falling from this scavenger's hideout that you're in, right? So this weird I-beam is falling. What do you do? And so, yeah, you might use something like acrobatics to get out of the way, or you might use something social to like get someone to help you. You might you can approach things from all these different ways. And so whatever skill you're using will give you sort of a die size. And so the deal is, the push your luck mechanic is that you can take more than one action per turn. You can take more actions per turn if you keep adding dice to your pool. And the reasons more dice is bad is because in Burn Bryte, you succeed unless you fail. So the idea is if I'm rolling 2d6s for some action, that's sort of my base action for dodge out of the way, I succeed unless I get doubles. And so, which is really neat. And so there's some really interesting math that goes into that. So it's a really different dice mechanic. And so if I want to take another action, I would be rolling another acrobatics action. I'd be rolling 3 d6s. So I'd have an increased chance of getting a matched pair, which would mean failure.
That sounds awesome.
That's
interesting. It's really wild.
I like
It's bizarre and fun and really quick to resolve in Roll20 and pretty quick to resolve. Like, you're just looking for doubles, so also really easy to see at the table. Autonomic Pod, in case anyone's interested, is using that same core mechanic system, but for a custom world and a whole different game, and that's run by Cat Cool. So Autonomic Pod will get you a good look at how that game plays out at the table.
Is it available now for if someone wanted to purchase it on Roll20?
It is not yet, but it is going to be in the coming months. So it's a big open beta. So if you're a Roll20, I think, subscriber of some level, you get access to all the playtest documents and assets. And so that's really fun. So you can get playing. And I know a bunch of people already are. And so it's been in this open beta for a while, getting information. And I think early next year, it'll be out publicly. So
exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Well, all of that information is awesome. And we do have a couple of questions popping up over on the Grant Ellis asks, he wants to know what your favorite Cipher descriptor is.
Ooh, what a cool question. I'm trying to think of the one that gives you an extra luck pool, or like an investment.
Luck. Well, there's Lucky that gives you the luck pool, and I think there is a detective pool in one of them. I think you're right. Yeah, I forget what that one is though.
Okay, so I like the two that, and I think it's fun because it like shows the modularity of the Cipher system, right? Like you can add having a whole other pool and not break the system at all. So the lucky one gives you a couple points that are in a separate pool and refresh differently that you can use anytime. And I think there's an investigative one. It might just let you spend points from other pools for investigative tasks, which I think is really cool, because I think, some people play these characters and what they really want to do is be, they want to be Data. They want to be this super intellect heavy person. And so just letting them draw from all their pools gives them really fun opportunities to also, I also love the idea that like maybe you describe how you use speed to investigate this thing, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I think it just provides really fun role play opportunities.
Most definitely. But we have one more question from Brilliant Loser, or he goes by Jesus on the Discord.
Okay.
He says, any advice for people who want to publish modules?
Yeah, the Cipher Dean would be great to talk to. We have the Cipher System Creator Program, which is if you want to publish for, adventures for like predation or, character options content for anything sort of Cipher system. We have packages of assets you can use. It's all through DriveThruRPG, and it's pretty fairly easy to like get set up and have templates to start creating, which is really cool. If you want to do something more elaborate or like something that falls outside of the bounds of that, then you need to like come to us and get a custom licensing agreement. But I think that like that's a great place to start. The other thing is that connecting with some of the awesome creators of that program already would be where I would go for my advice, right? So Dean has published some incredible stuff. I love the Superhero Mixtape. It's one of my favorites. And so I would like look at some of the stuff that is already up on the Cipher System Creator Program and talk to some of those creators, and they'll have some great advice for you. Trying to think if there's anything else specifically that I would say. If you have more questions, let me know. That might be a great question for like Monty or one of the designers if you have a question about like how you design modules.
Dean, there's one more question. You want to ask it before I lead
there's
into
a couple.
our
Actually, there's a couple more. Larian the Free, he said, or she said, what's something you learned from running and playing Invisible Sun online or in streams?
Ooh, interesting. Something I've learned from playing Cipher System or Invisible Sun?
Invisible Sun.
Ooh. I think that like it's driven home for me how much fun it is to have how much fun it is to be playing a game that specifically is built around collaboration and riffing off of each other, right? Because I think often we'll like bring in for A Woman with Hollow Eyes, we brought in the audience a lot in interesting ways, and we got to see their reaction and their ideas. And like sometimes I would, shout out some request I had for the audience, and they would give me some idea to riff off of. So I love playing with this like even greater extended community. That was a really fun one. The other thing is like for The Raven Wants What You Have, which is the pre-recorded Invisible Sun show that we did as MCG. Like I love how scary Invisible Sun can get when it's on stream for me. I don't know if that's general, but like because when I'm on stream, I'm like focused so heavily on, really I'm not thinking about anything that's not on stream, right? I'm not thinking about what's going on in my texts or work. I am like hardcore in character or thinking about what's going on at the table. And it kind of means that I feel all these emotions really strongly. And because Invisible Sun really plays with emotions, right? It's a game where you can have romance and tension and can get really spooky and scary, and also really joyous. Like I just feel like the streamed games of Invisible Sun have shown to me how that game plays off of emotions, and it really heightens it in a cool way. And I love that, right? And so it's kind of got me hooked on other ways that I can tap into that like heightened sense, and making people live in the game a little more fully. And so things like props and like dressing up is a thing that I would really want to like bring to my home games more often, just because I think Invisible Sun really sings when you're like living your character in a really strong way.
That's awesome.
It's so fun. There are so many gifs of me like losing my whole sensibility on screen. There's a lot of like gifs of me very happy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost broke of happess in that Invisible Sun game.
You become a sensate in that.
I do. I love sensates. They're my favorite faction.
But we do have one more question before we move on to the our fun little game that we're gonna play. But what you call it? I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but Siratica? Again, sorry for butchering that. Ask, do you know of any examples of Cipher system being implemented as a teaching tool, not just playing in an educational setting? So they're saying that they're thinking about implementing Cipher system to use in teaching design at a university level. The PCs would be sent with descriptors, and then I guess they do all the teaching in the game.
Ooh, super interesting. A lot of people who are experimenting with RPG tools and RPGs in general in sort of educational spaces are using No Thank You Evil. I think there's a lot of people who, a lot of people who work with children, right, are often thinking about gamification and design and using games as tools in education, things like that. I don't think I have heard of anything specifically like this with the Cipher system, but because it's so modular, right, I think there's probably a lot of fun to be had with it. Please let me know if you have ideas that you want to implement and if I can help you, because I would be super into that. There's a non-zero number of really cool teachers who are just part of our community and who are part of our asset team. And other kinds of educators that I think, I would be happy to ask my asset team and know, because I feel like they often kind of know weird projects that are incubating or have other good advice.
You know what, Darcy? Why don't we just design a class and
I want you so bad.
Let's go do it. Let's just do it. We'll go teach it at a couple of years.
Yes, we should.
If you do get that off the ground, could you please share that with the Cypher Unlimited Discord server? I'm sure there are many people on our server that would love to hear, first of all, how it went, and second of all, what was the process you used? Because maybe other people will want to duplicate it.
It's definitely super interesting, yeah.
Well, Skyzer just said too, just for those out there who may not be able to catch it, he said, thanks, I'm working on with other academics on RPGs in the university teaching, but haven't seen a Cipher system-like approach. So now's your options.
Now's your chance.
Contact Darcy at montecookgames.com.
But, yeah.
Yeah. So that leads us into our game, but before I do that, I just want to say something. Grant Ellis is in chat. I just want to give him a round of applause. His Kickstarter just recently got fulfilled many times over. I'm a backer, Grimworld. Grant, put in, I don't know if it's too late to back, but if it isn't, could you please put it in chat so our viewers could, if they want to support, jump on. And Grant, I just want to say this. You have no idea how much of an influence you were to us. When we were literally just getting started, you came on the show and you took the time to show us how to stream. And we basically, imitated what you were doing, just so we could start recording videos. So we love you, Grant. And congratulations again.
And congrats, yes. We want to have you on the show to talk about Grimworld.
Grant is an inspiration to us all.
Yeah, he was so supportive. He basically taught us everything we knew, and we knew very little, so that's saying a lot. So
And Darcy, you do know Grant's my son, right?
Oh, right. That's right. Yep.
All right. So, Anthony, shall we?
Yeah. So, Darcy, you already been on our show. You already know our famous rapid fire questions. You answered them already. So, we figured we'll try something new. We in honor of Cipher Speak, we created a game called What's Your Cipher Sentence? And what we're basically going to do is we're going to name a few MCG staff members, and we want you to give us off the top of your head what you think their Cipher sentences would be. Are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Wait. Monte Cook.
Monte Cook is an empathic creator who dabbles in all things.
Awesome.
That's how I would describe him.
Next, we have Shauna Germain.
Shauna Germain is an inspired whirlwind who will never stop dreaming.
That's awesome.
Bruce Cordell.
Ooh, Bruce is a savvy. Let's see. Bruce is a savvy design wizard who speaks to the stars. He's just the smartest person about space that I know. It's just so well.
He's one of the smartest people I know, period.
They're great.
Sean K. Reynolds.
Oh, Sean is a crafty jack of all trades with the biggest heart on earth.
Awesome.
He's very crafty. He makes all kinds of really cool stuff.
Yeah,
He's just so clever. And he can do anything.
You know what? And I meant to show him. I guess I can show him now. He inspired me. Keep talking. Ask the next question.
All right, so I'll go to the next one while he goes to get whatever he's getting. But next person on the list is Charles Ryan.
Oh, Charles. Charles is a Charles is an effusive game master. I think of him as game master first, who takes RPGs to the next level. He is always inspired and making new cool weird props, and he's who the deck box was the idea of, and he's just always, I feel like he's a game master first and everything else second. He's so cool.
Is Dean back?
Yep,
Yeah,
I'm back.
here.
Okay.
And Bear Whiter. And
Oh,
this is what Sean, I had to make it.
yes. I'll tell Sean to watch. That's so good. Did you make that?
Yes.
Yo, why did you wear that on our hat episode? That was perfect for. Remember the episode we all had hats on? I always wear a hat, but
I had to put it together. I was, I got on my gears and see they work.
Oh, they move?
Awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a clockwork hat. It was my Invisible Sun character.
you gotta bring that with you to Gen Con.
Yeah.
Yes.
I might actually bring it and give it to him.
Oh my gosh.
Alright.
Aw.
I was thinking more like filling it with beer when we're in the hotel, but okay. I'm sorry.
Dean, what was your...
Bear Whiter.
Bear Whiter is a foul-mouthed.
Immediately, there was no hesitation for that descriptor choice. Absolutely none.
The descriptor came first. Bear Whiter is a foul-mouthed softie whose pen is as mighty as his brush. He's both a writer and an incredible, layout artist and art director, and I think it's really fascinating that he spans both worlds.
That's awesome.
That's pretty good.
And our last person we have is Tammy Webb Ryan.
Oh, Tammy is an awe-inspiring goddess who
Can't make it hard.
yeah, who sees all. She runs the company. She sees when people are stressed out and sent me a Starbucks gift card when I said I was sad once, and it's just always looking out for people, and that's customers and that's the team. And she also just literally knows how everything works in the company. just brilliant.
You know what's funny? Every MCG meet and greet, the first thing we do is we got to find Tammy and give Tammy a hug.
Oh,
It's like,
she's
Big
bad.
facts.
oh yeah, our meet and greet doesn't start until we hug Tammy.
Oh,
All right, we got one real quick from the audience. If you want to do one more sentence for Jen Walls.
yes, that I would love to give a sentence to Jen Walls. Jen Walls is an let's see. Jen Walls is an exuberant. I haven't used that word yet, have I?
No.
No.
A couple of us are pretty exuberant. Jen Walls is an exuberant. Let's see. Speaker. She's a speaker. She's great at it. I feel like that. That's just a real character type. Let's see. human whisperer. So
Human whisperer. I like it.
She knows how to talk to humans and inspires me. So she's an exuberant human whisperer who is always challenging us to be better. You know, she's so cool. Wait till you like when we talk about the asset team. She's full of ideas on ways we could make the asset team more awesome. Ways we could make our upcoming conventions more awesome. She's like taking notes and stuff and talking to other people at other game companies so that, you know, we can learn from, you know, experiences that are great for other people. She's just brilliant, and we were so lucky to have her.
Jen is awesome. We got to chat with her at Gen Con. And James is awesome as well.
Yeah.
Her husband there.
And Darcy, just so you know, and you know, I have one for you because Darcy is the cacophonous face that makes RPGs accessible.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty good.
Cry. That's incredible. Oh, cacophonous. It's so good. Yes.
But actually, that's an excellent note to end us off. Yeah, it's an awesome, a very on point sentence. But yeah, this has been an awesome talk. Thank you so much, Darcy, for coming on and being on with us. But before we head off, how can our viewers reach you online? Like Twitter, Facebook? Like, what's the best way to find you online?
Yeah, I'm Darcy L. Ross at most places. So DarcyLRoss on Twitter is often great. Let's see, where else? Twitter's the best place to find me, I would say. Come find me on Twitter, Darcy L. Ross. I'm also often running the social media accounts, so you can see me behind the, you know, I'm the face right behind the Instagram and Facebook and Twitter of Monte Cook Games. So come hang out with me there too.
Yeah, so awesome. We'll be sure to include those links down below when we post this on YouTube. Yeah, any final thoughts, fellas, before I sign us off?
Just thank you everybody that showed up today. We love you guys all. You know, if you haven't, please join the Cipher Unlimited Discord server and like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel if you can. You know, we produce content every week, and you know, it's varied interviews, actual plays, editorials, you name it, we do it, and we love you guys.
Yep, most definitely. Oh, Steen, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just saying, yep.
That's it, just yep. no follow up. All right, but yeah.
One more thing. You know, Dean has to make us all hats now. He shouldn't have done such a good job on that hat. I'm expecting my hat for Gen Con.
Dean, that's a good sentence. I think that's the hook.
Do that.
But now that Dean is a certified haberdasherer or whatever you call the word, I think it's a good time to sign off here. So again, thank you guys so much for stopping by, watching the little talk. It was fantastic. Thank you again, Darcy, so much for coming on, talking with us. Be sure to follow the Twitch, and yeah, be on the lookout for more streams in the future. Hopefully I'll be doing another pre-gen stream a little soon. That was fun. And from us at the CU, we will see you later.